this December 7th through 9th. Check out the EdUp Experience podcast live and in person in Doha, Qatar for the World Innovation Summit on Education. We will be documenting the ideas and innovations from today's most influential global education leaders. Check them out at wise-qatar.org and follow the EdUp Experience podcast for more information. Yay! Guys, this is Joe just popping in to ask if you've signed up for your free marketing consultation with MDT Marketing yet. If you haven't, head to mdtmarketing.com/edup, submit your information, get your free consultation today. Don't do it alone. Find the right partner. Welcome back, everybody. This is the EdUp Experience podcast where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Luz. See? Oh, gosh. Every time I do this, I feel like I've got to get it right. I even have the sound effect. It gives me a break to reset, level set. For all of you listeners out there, you listen, I do this introduction. I've done it like 350 times, not counting the times that I practice. And the only place I ever screw up is around my own last name. It is literally incredible. It's a phenomenon. In fact, I'm not sure why that is, but apparently I can't say my own name appropriately. I can say the EdUp Experience 100 times out of 100, but my own name, forget about it. Anyway, thanks for joining us today, guys. As you know, we're on a march toward 100,000 downloads of the EdUp Experience podcast. When this episode comes out, it's probably going to be late November, early December. We're right now, as we're recording this, at about 92,000, approaching 93,000 quickly. We could not have done it without your support of this podcast. We've interviewed, believe this or not, we have interviewed 100 and released, I'll say released because we have a lot of episodes kind of in the hopper. We have released 117 episodes with college and university presidents in the last 2 years. 117. That includes private universities, public universities, community colleges, for-profit. We have gone far and wide to bring as many diverse voices on this podcast as possible. And I think we're making a difference. A lot of people out there are listening, and I want to thank you again. Of course, you could head up to over to the edupexperience.com and give us a review. We'd really appreciate it. Now, I have a first-time guest and a second-time guest co-host today. You may have, you may have heard his introduction sound before, but I'm going to give it to you again, and then I'm going to give you just a minute to think about who it could be. Here it is. Wonder who that could be? Well, it's the one and only President and Chief Executive Officer of Semester at Sea, Scott Marshall. Scott, welcome back.
Joe's, thanks so much for having me here, and thanks for that amazing intro.
Well, you know what? I think it's perfect. And in fact, the button sound effect is named Scott. So you're going to just keep getting it over and over again here, Scott. Thanks for coming back. We have an amazing guest for our audience today, and I'm going to give him a standing ovation. Here he comes, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Jack Paduntin. He's president at Pacific Oaks College. Let me try that again. Pacific Oaks College. Oh my God, Jack, I'm having a rough day. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Scott. Good to be with us today.
Welcome to the EdUp Experience podcast, Jack. I hope you're ready to have a fun conversation. Tell us about Pacific Oaks College. Where is it located? And what do you guys do? What kind of programs do you offer? Give us a once over.
All right. So we are in Pasadena and in San Jose. We have 2 campuses. In fact, we have 3 campuses, I would say. One of the campuses is our children's school. So we offer multiple programs, both undergraduate and graduate programs. Our area of disciplines includes education, human development, and psychology. We continue to add on a few more programs for the recent years, and that including social work, both bachelor and master degree as well. So that's where we are. I am here calling us from Pasadena, California.
Well, it could be worse, right? Pasadena's kind of nice area. Pacific Oaks has both on ground and online. Is that right?
Correct.
So what's growing right now, Jack? You've seen where I always ask these kind of questions. I could ask you a bunch of coronavirus questions, but it kind of feels like that's been played out at this point. So instead I'll ask, as a result of the pandemic, what have you seen with your enrollment trends, with students wanting to go to school on ground, choosing to go to school online instead of, or maybe also? What's the trend right now that you're seeing?
I think we kind of go back and forth, right? So last year, what we saw was that actually, I would say we have gone back and forth with our adjustment and the student adjustment as well. So when we first had the pandemic started in 2020, I think the big adjustment was to go from on campus to online. And that adjustment at our school went very well, actually. I would say that we were safely moving our operations from on campus to online. And that's not only the student, but also the faculty and staff as well. When I did that, I thought that was one of the biggest adjustments we would do in education. We did really well last year, actually. Enrollment grew moderately, over 10% last year. This time we kind of adjusting back again. And this adjustment is a little bit more interesting, I would say. I think it was easy to work from home, going back that way. Coming back to campus is another story. I think the economy has become more and more open, people going back to work. There's a lot of adjustment that our students need to go through. Pacific Oak students are adult learners, so they're actually working during the daytime. They typically has young families, and to come back to work and to go back to school at the same time, it is quite challenging for a lot of our students. So I see that the recent adjustment seems to be a little bit more challenging than what we did last year when we first had the pandemic.
Yeah, as you're saying here, and Scott, I'll kick it over to you here in a second, but adult students face a number of challenges, right? And I always say to whoever I have on, let's define who we're talking about, students, because that can mean a lot of things depending on who you're talking to. If you're talking about adult students, the issues that they have are very different than an 18-year-old who's doing an on-ground four-year university. When you're talking about, adult students with kids and with jobs, it's a different set of circumstances. And many times, adult students are handling so many issues that if any one of those pillars falls, it's really hard to keep them focused on their studies because, a bill takes them away from something, or they've got to focus on their kids, and of course they always sacrifice themselves. Has that been a challenge for you as coronavirus has placed undue stresses on adult students?
Well, Joe, I think you saw that clearly, actually. There are something that maybe an 18 years old or 21 years old do not need to overcome. For example, if the adult learner happen to have children at their home, talking about childcare, these days, talking about shortage of teachers, shortage of childcare, I would see the same thing you just said. I think these parents sacrifice everything for the family first. I think education is important for them. However, there are many that wanted to delay their education in order to make sure that their family are well taken care of. And that's what I have seen during the last few months. Our students, on the top of that, are also minority students as well, Joe and Scott. So there are a lot of culture elements that going into that. And I think regardless of culture, on what background people are, parents typically sacrifice everything that they do for their children. And that make it a little bit more challenging for most of our students that actually have to take care of their family.
Yeah, Jack, thanks for that response. My previous position was at an urban serving institution. The average age of the undergrad was about 27 years old. So there was a lot of students coming in from community college, very similar in demographic to the students that you serve. And I remember frequent conversations around how much of what kind of service the university needs to provide and how to allocate those resources. Where would we partner with the city or other nonprofit organizations to provide some services, and what services will just be the responsibility of the student. I'm curious, Jack, how you have responded to that, leading Pacific Oaks, in terms of how you as a university provide services directly to students, mental health, childcare, job support, commuting support, and so forth, versus outsourcing, partnering, aligning yourself with other partners?
Well, thanks for that question, Scott. Luckily at Pacific Oaks, we have children's school that actually is the origination of Pacific Oaks. Actually, the children's school started in 1945. Not all of our students actually use the children's school for their children, basically. But we do have enough expertise or experts to actually help advise our student on where to receive services that may be applicable for them. During this pandemic time, one part of our organization, one part of the college called Center for Community and Social Impact. And that is the part where we actually help advancing our student success through the support. There are additional support that we do. Maybe I can go through some of that with you just to see how well supported our students are. Last year, we also received a $2.5 million funding from the government for, as a Hispanic serving institution. It is a very competitive grant, and that grant is basically to help to build infrastructure to help our students to be successful. That particular grant help supporting students with laptop, loaner, much needed during the pandemic, and lending library for books, and also tutor. The part that I think it's make it easier for our student is that life is already complex last year. When they come to school, they need to come to a school where services are readily and easily accessed for them. I typically like to see our students to be at full service when they come to school. I think they have a lot to figure out their life for work and for family. When they come to school, what we want them to know, what we want them to do is just to focus on learning and enjoying the school experience. So the Student Success Center that was built based on the grants kind of help us to provide that one layer of support. And so with that said, I think that's so critical for our student success for undergraduate, particularly for that particular grant. We do provide additional services to the community that are not only our student as well. You know, a high school student had a lot of challenges going through this changing of modality of learning. The Center for Community and Social Impact kind of help advance our mission to support the community. And overall, it's kind of come back to support our student to advance their degree as well.
Well, congratulations on that grant. That must have been a real big win for your institution and for the students. That's tremendous.
Thank you. We're so pleased with that. I think it has made a big impact for us, particularly on retention and success rate, right? Because this is a time that we need more support from anyone. Luckily, it was a perfect year that the grants came through Pacific Oaks.
Talk about, Jack, a little bit about the children's school of Pacific Oaks. Is this something you oversee? You have a director there that reports into you, and you're overseeing a bunch of adult students and then a bunch of kids and nothing in between?
You know,
how does that work?
This is a special part of my job here. Actually, I'm not an early childhood educator. I've never been in one before, but of course we have an executive director that's in charge of that. What I did last year, which I thought it was so special year for me, was that the children's school remained open during the pandemic. We did address the need for shortage of childcare. So we remained open for the entire year. What I did was simply be at the children's school just to support my teachers and my administrator and staff, just to be there with them. I can't proclaim to be an expert in early educator, but just to be there with them, help us to operate very smoothly. We were actually just named the best preschool in Pasadena. This is our second year having that title.
Amazing.
Right?
You like that?
Amazing.
I like that jingle. I don't know how you did it. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's good. We'll keep pressing it for you. That's amazing. And, you know, a really important point about this, about remaining open at a children's school, is the fact that the parents were able to go to work during the toughest times of coronavirus and not have kids at home. I don't want to say disrupting, because that's what says really bad things about kids, but being kids. Right. And having to work. I know so many people that are my colleagues, how hard it was to work from home when you had kids running around. I mean, I got a little boy, his name's Julio, and he would show up. I'd be on a Zoom call and he comes on his little Iron Man mask and he comes under my arm, and all of a sudden Iron Man is sitting there on the Zoom call, and I'm like, okay, well, there's not much I can do to be professional now on this call. So what a really amazing service for you to be able to have parents still drop their kids off in great care and go to work. I mean, that must have just been huge for you.
Well, thank you, Joe. I certainly believe in one thing. I believe that parents want the best for their children. That's no doubt. But I also believe in experts that can help child development as they go through the process, right? I believe that children learn from one another as much as they learn from adults. So just to have a space for them and enable them to socialize and learning, that was the year that we did not flag as a lost year for the children, right? Because I think there are some children that's staying at home. Some parents think that, well, that's a lost year, but our children was lucky in such a way that we remained open and we wanted to be as safe as possible. Of course, everyone know how many guidelines we need to follow. As a college, the children's school is even more strict as far as how to operate during the pandemic.
You know, that brings up a question here before I kick it back to you, Scott, and that's, you have about 35.5% of your students and alumni that find success in education, which is huge, right? It's more than a third of your overall grads are out there working in education. Do you use the children's school as an incubator? Do they get hours there if they're in early childhood education? Do you use it to help with training of students?
You know, we have done that in the past. Things has changed over the time as well. We always wanted to stay connected between the college and the children's school. We do employ a good number of students from the college to be at the children's school during the pandemic. However, the restriction make it impossible, I would say. Those who can come to the school must be a school employee and no volunteer, no part-time employee. The restriction was quite difficult last year. We certainly are going back into doing that again. In fact, before I opened the children's school, we were so lucky to actually talk to a lot of our alum who are so successful running many preschool in the area, and they gave us good advice. And one of the things that I can tell was that they gave us good advice, but they also credit those good advice that it came from their experience at the children's school. And that has been resounding. All these successful directors locally saying that, you know, I'm giving this back to you because at one point I was a student at the children's school, or I was working at the children's school. I learned everything from the children's school, and this is a time to give back. And I think that was the most beautiful thing that a college should have, because we continue to educate. And we like it so much when the help or the give back coming back from our own student who had the best experience when they were here.
If you're experiencing any level of marketing challenge right now, you've got to ask the hard questions and you need answers. Are you using the right mix of channels to get in front of your future students? Is your messaging personalized and delivered in a medium your audience and future students will respond to? And are you spending more time building reporting than listening in on what your students really want? All of these questions will get answered when you sign up for your free consultation with MDT Marketing. Head to mdtmarketing.com/edup Submit your information and talk to MDT. Don't go it alone. Find the right partner. The guys at MDT, the team at MDT is absolutely amazing. Whether your challenge is the cost of inquiries, your branding, the bad and incomplete information that come with your inquiries, whatever it is, an audit of your challenges will help your institution, and it's free. mdtmarketing.com/EdUp.
That's a great story, Jack. It is awesome. I work with a lot of alumni, and similar to see them reinvest in a program that meant so much to them is a powerful testament to the work that we do. If you don't mind, I'd like to switch back to Pacific Oaks College. And you mentioned before, Jack, that your institution made a fairly easy transition, or it wasn't too challenging to transition to online. That you actually experienced some growth. I've talked to a number of other institutions where they had a much more difficult time in that transition. They have put a stake back in the ground that they are a residential university, that students demand to be back on campus, as do their parents, pulling faculty back. I'm curious how the conversations are going on your campus about balancing this push-pull around residential courses and online courses, and how you're trying to find that right balance between the two.
So this fall term was the first term that everybody came back on campus, or I would say everybody who wants to come back on campus do come back on campus. Almost all of our programs are offering in both online and on campus. So the student do have choice, whether they wanted to go online entirely or they wanted to come back to campus. The fact that we give that options, I think that's important for Pacific Oaks. I think that's the way that we learn. That's the way that a lot of adult learners prefer to interact with one another. We are not a big school. We serve about 1,400 students at any given time, and half are online, half are on campus. The preparation has been done for a long time, Scott and Joe. We talk about vaccine requirements. We actually follow all the safety requirements by the Department of Public Health in Pasadena and CDC. We wanted to make sure that when people comes back, they come back as safe as possible, while nobody can guarantee 100% safety. But we move it in that manner. The way that we reopened the campus was through a very different phases. So we have actually 5 phases of reopening because I think we are learning as an organization as well. The first phase was having staff coming back, having faculty coming back, proportional, like 20% coming back, and it's gradually we learn as we become fully open. Same thing as students. Before all the students came back to campus, the stage before the final stage was having 25% coming in first, because I need to prepare the facility, the staff, and the check-in point just to make sure that we have everything checked. It is almost like a pilot process or pilot project that we do for any big initiative. So we kind of put that 5 phases. But when we open again in August, that's when we thought that we were so ready. We have any checkpoint. We continue to communicate with our students as they came back. This November 1st was the day that we put our vaccine requirement in full effect. But leading to that day, we go to classroom, we talk to the students, we tell them how important that is. Exemption are made if they need it. Common exemption, religious and medical need, typically those are the 2. But through extensive communication, before they came back to campus, when they come back to campus before the vaccine requirement take place, I think that's the key success factor for us. These days, our students are pretty much online, any place, anywhere. Information overload is the key, right? How many emails each one of us have a day, and do we read every single detail? And that's why we believe in multi-channel communication with our students. Even that means that we stop by the classroom to talk to them and answer some of the questions. It's kind of help us that way to transition back to campus.
Talk a little bit about the current state of things. You talked a little bit about enrollment, which is great, and you've discussed online, on ground. What about the environment, the competitive environment of higher ed, and how does your position as a partner, I guess I don't know what to call Pacific Oaks College, a partner institution or affiliate institution with TCS Education, which is a system of universities?
Yes, we are an affiliate institution. In fact, we like to see ourselves as the system itself. Actually, the system has 5 different colleges and university, and all of those 5 is the system. Actually, the 5 institutions and the system office as a combination consider a TCS education system.
Yeah, and so the way I understand it, TCS Education is your affiliate institutions. You are the system, but you have a shared services model of sorts where they handle some of the administrative services like legal and human resources, and I'm guessing here, and what marketing may be. And then at your institution, you're enrolling students, financial aid, teaching them, retaining them, and so on. That alleviates a lot of the stress that comes with operating an independent institution through that affiliation. So we always talk about models right now, Jack, like what's the model of the future? There's mergers, there's acquisitions, and TCS can be an example of what a model of the future looks like. So how does being an affiliate institution of TCS give you a competitive advantage in, as you know, a very crowded marketplace right now?
Well, thank you for that question, Joe. I think Pacific Oaks is so lucky to be part of the system, or to be the system itself, especially this last year. I think students need extra attention, and the system kind of allow us to focus our energy and attention to the students, and not having to worry about some of the back-end support that we should not be worried about. I think the student is the main focus. For example, IT. If we have an expert in IT area that can actually help providing a transition from on-campus to online, let the best person who know how to do that handle that. And as a small school, professional support is so critical. And small school usually subject to investments or money that we can spend, and if we are, sometimes small school do compromise on getting the second best to support their school, right? You can actually hire maybe affordable IT professional coming in, but as part of the system, we can get the top IT person coming in and help us mobilize resources in that fashion, right? So you don't compromise the quality of the support. You share a lot of things that the system has. I can give you one example, instructional designer. To move classroom from on campus to online, we need to actually have the best online program that help engage our students. And we could, as a small college, hire 2 or 3 instructional designers to do that work. But when it becomes a system, we could actually have a larger department to utilize that expertise. And sometimes that particular function can be very seasonal as well. Some time of the year, they're very busy. Some other time, they're not. But to be able to actually mobilize resources within that larger department help most of our institution, actually, I would say all, I'm saying most because not every school has online in every program. So anyone that wanted to utilize that kind of expertise can manage the best of the best expert from the pool. And even though it's seasonal work, it's helped balance it out with the 5 colleges that we have currently at TCS Education System.
Well, Jack, this is the part of the episode before I hand it back to Scott for further questions from him. I do like to give you a curveball. So this is a question kind of unrelated to higher ed. I'm going to ask you, actually, I'll ask you 2 questions and you got to pick which one you want to answer. You ready?
Yeah.
for no money, Jack, no money. But we still want to know one of two things. Number one, tell us about you, Jack. If you're going to give a commencement speech, if you're going to enter a room and have a meeting and there's a song playing, your entrance music, what's that song that you'd want to enter a room to every single time that you did? Or you can take the question on what's the dream vacation that you need to take that you haven't taken yet?
Both are very difficult questions, Joe. So I haven't thought of that so clearly. Well, maybe talking about dream vacation might be what I wanted to hit into, because my choice of music might not be what most people would really entertain, especially in commencements. I think I wanted to make sure that all the audience are happy with my choice.
You're a smart man. Let's hear about the vacation.
All right. In fact, I am going back to my home country, Thailand, next week, actually. And that has been a dream vacation because I wanted to go home for quite some time. And the pandemic kind of stopped me for the last 2 years. And so this is the most exciting time to go back home. It's not just to be at home, but just to reunite with my families in Bangkok, Thailand, and just to spend time for the missing 2 years not seeing them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Scott, I'm going to kick it over to you, but I just want to say that as coronavirus has impacted us all, if you've got family domestically that you may haven't seen, but imagine if that family was literally a world away, or I don't know, what is it, from California, Jack? It's probably like a 10-hour plane ride by the time you get there?
24.
Oh, gosh.
Right.
Yeah, I don't remember much. I went to Phuket.
Right.
Not Thailand, and I took a trip there with my wife. I can't tell you I remember getting there at all because I was so tired. I remember sleeping on floors of airports, maybe in South Korea somewhere. Right. But a beautiful country, and I wish you all the best to go see your family. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Scott.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad Jack mentioned Thailand. That is just such a beautiful country. The food is amazing. The people are so generous. So I'm so glad you get back there. I've only visited there a few times, would love to get back there myself. Jack, thanks so much for sharing the landscape that you're working within and the success that your institution has had this far. I do find the system model very intriguing. If we go back to just a more sort of strategic question that Joe started to get after with his second to last question, and that is, there are some institutions that actually were not online before that now are, and we're finding it that they can do it successfully, and they can actually compete outside of what they thought was their geographic region. I'm just curious if you have any concerns about competition from outside areas coming in, given that the online environment is basically worldwide. Are you seeing any of that?
Well, Scott, I think that's apparent to all of us. I don't even think of online would be competitive domestically as well. I think institution overseas, the UK, Australia, Canada, now everybody's doing online. European countries also doing the same thing. At one time, we thought language might be the advantage that we do it here, but doesn't really matter now. You can go to any European institutions these days and actually get to see classes being offered in English. So I see that magnitude of online competition getting more intensified than anyone could imagine. And now where exactly that we would be with everyone jumping into online. I don't know if you read the same book. I like reading Blue Ocean. I think these days we can't really find so much of a big space of blue ocean anymore. It might be super.
You can, Jack, if you take vacation on semester C, you can find the blue ocean.
Just for the record, I'd never thought Jack would tee up me being able to hit the ship horn button, but he started talking about oceans, so I had to do it.
All right. I thought it was banned from what I tried to answer to you, but it's possible to find blue ocean. I think, but it's very. It will be more bloody ocean than you see a little blue someplace somewhere. What I think is important is we all going to be growing and supporting our students based on one core competency or one ability that we would do well, especially small school. I think being flexible, being understanding of the needs of our students would help us serve better, right? Because when I say online going to be highly competitive, yes, it will be. But at some point, would the ocean turn bloody, the entire ocean? Maybe. But there'll be somebody who doesn't want it to be in the ocean, want to be on the boat in person. And a small school may have that advantage of moving back and forth in between, right? So you can go online if the student wanted to be online. But when the student wanted to be on campus, then you can have that capability to serve that need. At the end of the day, I think the learning preferences of the student would drive us on where we need to be. And I think we are prepared. We position ourselves to be both online and on campus. I still value education in both modalities, and we want it to be that for our students.
I love the bloody ocean stuff. Scott, go ahead. I see you popping in. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that book. I used to use it in my classes back in my former life as a professor in business school. Kim and Marborn continued to write on blue and red oceans. And I agree with you, Jack, that it's difficult to find blue water in higher ed. Very difficult. So I wish you luck. I think your regional strength, your heritage are your key strengths, and you seem to be playing off them extremely well.
Thank you.
So Jack, what is talk about leadership right now? You've got a leadership team. You are attempting to grow in a crowded marketplace, as you say. And to your point that colleges right now are either embracing or not. Some are calling their employees back to work. Others are operating in a more hybrid environment. Can you talk about that leadership continuum right now, how you're approaching what the future looks like? Are you doubling down on having everyone on campus together because the office experience and the collaboration needs to happen? Are you adopting a hybrid work environment because you are online? Can you talk about how you've worked through that? And the reason I ask is because there's this phenomenon that I've noticed lately is I do my research on what's out there about colleges and universities and positions and who's hiring, who's losing people, is that whoever's posting jobs right now puts on site, online, or hybrid as a marker. And that never used to happen, right? There was an assumption that if a job was posted, you assumed it was on ground unless someone said it was online, but now it says on site. And that's just a new phenomenon since coronavirus. So talk about Pacific Oaks and what you guys are doing.
So as a small college, we hired about 140 employees here in Pasadena and in San Jose. We believe that the student experience is the key, and it's the key success factor for us. So we looking at providing more on-site services the way that we did pre-pandemic. We do give some flexibility to our staff and employee as well, knowing that they're going through some adaptation and taking care of the childcare, as I mentioned to you early on. Our goal is remain open on campus, having every function that used to be offered pre-pandemic available to our students. And with that in mind, we also sensitive with the need of our employees as well. So each department kind of manage it accordingly on how they will staff their own departments and how flexible it needs to be within that department. I think every organization, not only higher education, experience the same thing. This is the time where we not only competing for students, I think we competing for resources as well, for employees, for faculty. I think having an empathy on the situation that they're going through help creating that community. I think sense of belonging is very critical. I do see some turnover at Pacific Oaks as well, especially during the early part of the reopening. I think there's reopening of the economy make a lot of people rethink on what their career might be what is the next move. And I'm happy for everyone who make the change, actually. I think when they make the change, it's also meaning that they grow. And we like everyone, we like our friends, our family. Actually, PO team is a family team. So we like them to grow and we want whatever best for them. Certainly, if they're here and growing with us, that's maybe a win-win situation. But we certainly stay connected with those who decided to grow someplace else because of their priority change or their family situation change. But at PO, despite of all of this adjustment that we're going into the future, the priority is our student experience. We wanted to make sure that they have everything that they had pre-pandemic. There might be some adjustment going on, but so far we have been able to deliver that to our community.
Awesome. Scott, do you have any more questions for Jack before I move into our final two?
Not at this point. It's just been such a pleasure to hear from Jack. Joe, thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. All right, Jack, we ask our guests the same two questions. Well, we ask the same two questions to every guest, I should say. Number one, Jack, what did we miss about Pacific Oaks College that you may have forgotten to bring up? You were hoping to bring it up and we didn't give you the right question or opportunity. Any events you have coming up, you can plug your website, whatever you want to talk about, take a couple of minutes to do that. And then secondly, tell us what you think the future of higher education is going to look like.
Thank you, Joe. And a little bit about Pacific Oaks. I think I share common experience with most of my students and faculty here. We feel like home. I am an immigrant coming from Thailand, and I represent diversity here at Pacific Oaks. I wanted to be part of the mechanic to help inspire more people at Pacific Oaks. We are a minority serving institution. Minority sometimes need a lot of encouragement, need a lot of role model to do. And I'm not the only role model for the school. I think our faculty and the student themselves are role model to one another. I think that's a very critical part. I believe that people have sense of belonging because of the diversity we have on campus. I think everyone can be that person, and we need to do more of that. Oftentimes, people of minority or underserved population are focusing on the deficiency of themselves. And at Pacific Oaks, rather than focusing on deficiency, whether that be being a first generation of college students or having a language barrier, we're focusing on strength. And we want that strength to build the success and creating more champion for the next generation to come. And I think that's a lot of inspiring story that you can see at Pacific Oaks, and I'm proud of that.
The future of higher education, Jack, given your unique perspective.
I think it's going to be very fragmented for the future of higher education. I think the needs are going to be very difficult to fulfill or to serve, basically. You know, we used to think of online and on campus. They're somewhere in between, although hybrid is not something new, but what is the right balance? And I think the organization or the school that actually find that right balance would actually be a winner in higher education. I think organizations that actually have a strong support and have expertise in every area are going to have that success. And if I would go back to Pacific Oaks being part of the system, I think that's a critical part. Small school is not easy to operate. I oftentimes see small school as an organization that one day, like an infant, maybe because we have the children's school here, I oftentimes cannot help relating small school like being an infant. One day you're very healthy and one day you're very sick, but having a system to back it up and cure when the child doesn't feel well, it is a key success factor. And we are proud, a member of the TCS education system. And I think regardless of the storm coming our way, sometimes it's a perfect storm like what we're having right now. Having a back-end support that is so solid, help us to go through any difficulties and challenges.
Wow, love it. And I think you're right. And, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic where many came out and said TCS education. That's why we went out and I had interviewed Dr. Michael Horowitz for a previous podcast company I was working with. And then I went back when we started EdUp and I said, you got to come back on. Now this whole coronavirus thing is happening. TCS could be a model for the future, right? It's a protectionary shared services model. And we're starting to see that happen. We just released an episode. Actually, were you on it, Scott, with Mark LaBranch from Tennessee Southern? Was that you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it was. Funny enough, we just went out a couple of days ago, and they were a Martin Methodist University, and the University of Tennessee came and assimilated them into the University of Tennessee system. So a lot of small schools are lucky to have the opportunity to do something like that. But Jack, as you know, not every small school will have that opportunity. So the landscape, to your point, is definitely going to change.
I agree with you.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another amazing episode of the EdUp Experience. First, my guest co-host, Scott Marshall, President, CEO, Semester at Sea. Scott, thanks for coming on again.
Appreciate it, Joe. Pleasure to speak with you, Jack.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Scott. It's so good to talk to you. It's so good to share our story. And I'm happy to come back anytime to carry the next conversation with us. Thank you.
Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jack Paduntin. He is president of Pacific Oaks College. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You've just EdUp'd.
Are you using the right mix of channels to get in front of your audience? Is your messaging personalized and delivered in a medium your audience responds to? Are you spending more time building reports than listening in on what your audience wants? These are not easy questions to answer. That's why our great friends at MDT Marketing are offering a free audit of your marketing efforts. Head to www.mdtmarketing.com/edup and submit your information for your free consultation today. Look, guys, you got nothing to lose. It's free. I don't know why you wouldn't want a free audit to tell you what you're doing, whether it's effective, and how you can make some incremental changes that can make a big difference moving forward. That's www.mdtmarketing.com/edup.